or indoor plumbing. We used a bucket that was emptied daily for toilet. My mother was in her second marriage, and I was her only child. As with all of our relationships, she was a victim of abuse. She was a bartender, an alcoholic, and a drug abuser. I spent a lot of times in or around bar rooms as a young boy. My mother hooked up with another guy, and I spent a year or so in Texas. This man often violently beat her and me. Eventually, the beatings got severe enough for her to bail out and move back to Louisiana. She was still tending bars and developing a hard addiction to methamphetamines, and she married a guy who manufactured the drug. Well, that's convenient, huh? Okay. They used to tell me that they were making roach poison. Probably true. For a boy at the age of 8, this man became the closest thing to a father figure I would have until I was about 17. Around this time, my mother was introduced to Pentecost and really cleaned herself up. Although not a devout woman to the faith, she found a way to clean herself up. The only problem was she kept the husband, which later proved to be a fatal mistake. By age 8, I was as horrible as a child could be. I smoked cigarettes, marijuana, drank any alcohol I could find. The man my mother had married was a serious nutcase. He had been in prison and insisted on being as hard on me as he could. He forced me to do all kinds of manual labor he decided on at day or night. I didn't go play or participate in activities. All I did was work. I endured some of the most severe beatings from this man, and my mother had 2 more children with him. My sister Selena was born when I was 10. I truly hated this man and dreamed of the day I would be away from the whole situation. My brother TJ was born when I was 15. When I was 16, I was baptized and received the Holy Ghost, but I had no foundation. I wrecked my first car in the accident, and the driver of the other car, a woman, was killed. I was charged with negligent homicide and arrested. My best friend's dad was the only person who could make a $250,000 bond, and he got me out of jail. Things around home were much worse now, and I moved out at 17. I met a wonderful girl at the church my mom attended frequently, and we began to date. She knew my family was crazy, but as far as I could tell, she was going to be my best shot at something normal. By now, I'm an alcoholic, and I use drugs. She knew I drank, but not about the drug use. And although she was raised in a Pentecostal family, she had left the church for personal reasons. We got married when I was 19. A year prior, I had had a bout with cocaine and was arrested again for burglary. I received a suspended 5-year sentence. 2 years later, I received a DWI. My life is really shaping up nicely, huh? And I'm finding different drugs along the way. In the summer of 1999, my mother was beaten and murdered by the man whom she was married to, while Selena and TJ was in the vehicle. The man drug her out of the vehicle inside and shot and killed her. She had tried to leave him, and things went very bad for her. My wife and I married at this time for 2 years and took custody of my brother and sister, now 5 and 10 years old. Then we began a murder trial that lasted 2 years. During these 2 years, I was on a downward spiral of rampant drug and alcohol abuse. On April 2001, I hit rock bottom in a drug stupor. I robbed a man and was stabbed 3 times. The man stabbed him while he was trying to rob him. Don't blame him. I was arrested and charged with first-degree robbery and aggravated battery. I was sentenced to 5 years hard labor. In July of 2001, my beautiful wife remained diligent, faithful, and once again helped me through. I was surrounded by angry people just like me. Every day I lived in chaos. I fought a lot. It seemed a way to relieve my anger at the time. I'm grateful that I was never severely hurt. My discipline record, his fighting record, got me shipped to 6 different places, prisons all over Louisiana. His record, and then they would move him because he was such a troublemaker. I can't imagine that. A couple of years into my sentence, my wife went to church and gave her life to Jesus Christ. Shortly after that, I met her pastor and his wife, Joel and Marty Hines, which is Hannah's mother and father. They drove for 6 hours to visit me in prison. I was very aware at the time that I had salvation business to get straight, but I was also aware I still had some years left to serve out my sentence. The Hines and I began to correspond through the mail, and I began studying the Bible. They mailed me a packet every month. They shared Bible study and arranged for me to receive sermons on tape. After a while, I knew exactly what it was going to take to get control of my life. I had no disillusionment that it would be easy, but I knew that Jesus had to be the very center. In July 24, 2005, I became a free man, and I basically had nothing. I had nothing except a bad past and a marred record. I had my wife, and that was all. I went to the Hines Church, and we were treated as a normal family. They helped me to get a place to live. As I began to move closer to Jesus, He began to bless me. And I got a great job in a thriving industry, and within a year had nearly topped out the pay scale. I have progressively grown in my personal walk with Jesus Christ. I am now an usher, a teacher of His Word to a class of junior high students. I've invested time into a group of pioneer boys and built a campsite for them to camp and enjoy outdoor activities. And if you could see the place, we have about 10 acres. We have 4 acres. It's cleared, and the back 6 acres is wooded. And he had a vision at our last retreat. His dream, because we had different ones give their dreams. He said, what I'd love to do is, I never had that opportunity. I'd love to take the boys and with some of the, college and career and kind of clear out some trails and, just have fun and camp with them. And my God, it's been a beautiful dream. The men in the church have just rallied, and it's just, everything he didn't have, he's providing for them. Let's see. Can you believe my wife and I are considered to be leaders in a church where God moves and works in mighty ways? And when I tell you, there's a picture, I think he was at the retreat. His wife truly does have amazing leadership skills, and he does too, but at the time we did not know that. This was probably 2 years ago. He'd been coming. We knew he was doing really good. He still was addicted to nicotine, and we brought him because he was a spouse of Sister Jenny, she is amazing, and we knew she had leadership abilities. So we asked him to come. I can't even tell you what that did to that man. I never knew his story at the time. I didn't know everything. I knew he'd been in prison, and I knew that he was doing well, but he said he had never seen a beach. We have a retreat at the beach. He had never seen water, waves, never in his life. Never been to like a hotel, a nice hotel. We go there all the time. Every year we go to the condos. I mean, they're not luxurious, but never in his life ever been to like a nice hotel. Never. He couldn't believe that we would let him come. And when I tell you that was 3 years ago, and now we've got a man who is handsome, a very handsome man, who is delivered completely from nicotine a year and a half ago at men's conference, or 2 years, I don't know, stands very tall, is one of our best awesome ushers, an incredible teacher. And we are watching this man who now is, he's everywhere. He's all over the church. He's rounding people up. There is no telling what this man will become. God can do anything. Oh, Lord. And my baby brother, TJ, who witnessed his mother's murder, just played the bass he's an up-and-coming musician, and he's played the bass at our youth service. It was so powerful. And we were all just clapping, because it's just such a sweet story. And he writes to you, these stories are for you. I can only anticipate what God has in store for my family as we continue to grow and invest in His kingdom. I am a living witness. God is able to make the best out of the worst situations. God truly changes people. He has changed me my whole life, and I simply wouldn't have it any other way. Oh, God have mercy. Now, expanding the net. We're going to talk a little bit about the journey, because this is a huge piece. Okay, how are we going to transform believers, new believers like Doug, into partners? How are we going to do it? How are we going to take a Paul Trinicos who is so far from God, value system is completely different, and how are we going to turn them into partners? One thing, they shouldn't be shocked. Your first blank, there should be no surprise that God and we covet their committed partnership.